It's 2025. It's June of 2025. And this past weekend, the Goonies had their 40th anniversary of it being released in Astoria, Oregon, which is one of those places I've always wanted to go to. It's on I have like a Google map list thing of things I've wanted to see. And that's been on it since the day I started it, because I love the Goonies. I just happened to see it when it came out, just to go see a movie. I didn't know what it was going to be, and I went and saw it, and it was like such a wonderful adventure movie. I loved it. 40 years ago, which means I graduated from high school 45 years ago, which is the most awful thought, almost the most awful thought. But I'm not big on collecting movie replicas, but I did buy this because I liked it so much, because I liked that movie so much. Today, I'm going to be talking about two of the stars of the Goonies that have sadly passed away. And those would be Anne Ramsey, who played Fratelli, Mrs. Fratelli, Mama Fratelli.
You gross old witch! You want to play pirate? We'll play pirate!
And Sloth, who was a son of Anne Ramsey in the movie. And he was a Fratelli, and his name was Sloth, and he was a unfortunately deformed individual in the movie who ended up being a hero in the movie. And so today is the story of Anne Ramsey and Sloth, John Matuszak. It had to be so difficult to be Anne Ramsey. I mean, she was quite pretty when she was growing up, but she kind of, I don't know, morphed into a woman who was embraced for not being very pretty. In fact, it had, in one of the reviews for one of her movies, they called her grotesque. They said that she had the face of a mother no one could love. She herself responded one time, she said, "I'm not a pretty woman, but I'm a beautiful woman inside," when she was asked about her appearance, which I think is so that someone even asked her about her appearance. What's it like to look like you? What an awful thing to ask someone. But despite the fact that she embraced her appearance, and I guess she went on with it, you know what I mean? She just took it and went on with it, and let it go and embraced it. She became she was beloved by children, and she loved the attention from kids. Goonies was first, or not the very first, because she had lots of movies and lots of television credits first, but the Goonies is what propelled her into, I guess what you call stardom. And then Throw Mama from the Train was one that got her an Oscar nomination and a Golden Globe nomination. And her publicist said that she became a cult hero to young people after Throw Mama from the Train. Kids wouldn't leave her alone, and she loved it. She enjoyed it all. Ann Mobley was her birth name. She was born in 1929 in Omaha, Nebraska. Her mother was involved with the Girl Scouts, like on an executive founding level, as a treasurer, and her father was an insurance executive. Her uncle was a U.S. ambassador, and she was raised in Greenwich, Connecticut. She was a debutante, actually. She attended Bennington College, and that's where she became interested in performing in theater. And in the 1950s, she went to New York and performed in Broadway and off-Broadway, and she met her husband, fellow actor Logan Ramsey. And they were married in 1954. And Logan Ramsey was actually a retired Navy lieutenant, junior grade, during World War II, serving in the Pacific Theater. And I found one of her wedding announcements. It was a society event. I mean, she was a debutante, and it said that she made her debut at the Westchester Cotillion at her wedding to Logan Ramsey. She wore a gown of three-tiered Swiss embroidered organdy. Her fingertip illusion veil was held in place by a doe of valley lilies. She carried a cascade bouquet of white butterfly orchids and stephanotis, some sort of flower. And they eventually made their way to New York City and ultimately moved to Philadelphia, where they founded the Theater of the Living Arts. Now, she and Logan they did get married and moved to Los Angeles, and they ultimately bought this very nice little house on a sort of a cul-de-sac in what's known as Van Nuys now, but technically it's in Los Angeles. And they bought it probably really cheap. It's 1,300 square foot. And when they built it, they probably bought it for like $20,000, and now it's worth $1.1 million. It's crazy, but that's Los Angeles. Now she did a ton of appearances on television programs like Little House on the Prairie and Laverne and Shirley. She was in Wonder Woman.
Boy, what a day. It's not only it, lady.
You did that.
I did, and unless you want to meet a similar fate, madam, I suggest you keep your ample derriere off my hood.
She was in classic made-for-television movies, The Boy in the Plastic Bubble.
Sweetheart, I'll meet you outside.
Rachel, don't forget to test the backup generator at least once a day, and if anything goes wrong, don't hesitate to call us.
Don't worry about it, Faye.
We'll be at that number. Bye-bye.
Have a good trip.
And Dawn, Portrait of a Teenage Runaway.
You'll have to leave your bag at the desk.
Oh, no, it's okay. I'm going.
She was in a few films. She was in the Streisand film Up the Sandbox, and also in another Streisand film called For Pete's Sake.
It's your word against our computer, Mrs. Roberts.
We did not make a phone call to Yugoslavia. We have never been to Yugoslavia. We do not know anyone in Yugoslavia. And even if we did know someone in Yugoslavia, we wouldn't spend $12 to call them.
Our computer says you did.
Your computer is a liar.
That little remark goes right into your file card, which goes into our computer.
Her husband, Logan, had success in the Walking Tall movies. He was also in, he had a small part in the Monkey's Head movie. And later in television, he showed up on shows like Mannix and Murder, She Wrote, like everyone, and the Jeffersons. But in 1985, she got the role of Mama Fratelli in the classic film, The Goonies. I watched the film fairly recently, and I watched the commentary track with the kids and the director, and it was a difficult watch. It really was, because it's all those personalities and actor people who couldn't shut up to get their own stories across. But Martha Plimpton did say something really nice about her, said that
She was great.
So
She
cute.
was so sweet. What a wonderful lady.
She really was. Remember that party they had at their house one night for all of us?
Yeah.
They had us all over for dinner and hors d'oeuvres and stuff.
Really?
Yeah.
Logan and Anne were awesome. They were great.
No.
I don't think I was
Where?
there.
and they just said really nice things when someone got a word in edgewise about someone that wasn't them, said something really nice. Just that Anne Ramsey and her husband were very nice. Now, in 1984, she was diagnosed with esophageal cancer, and that led to surgery, removing a portion of her tongue. And she had chemotherapy, but she continued to work, but she struggled with her speech. But she leaned on her looks, leaned into her looks. She also leaned into what happened as far as that went. And she was cast in the movie with Danny DeVito and Billy Crystal called Throw Mama from the Train, which was a very dark, very, very dark movie and very, very funny.
I run Ellen! I'll be back in a minute.
I run my bat. I run my medicine.
I can get it for you.
Who the hell are you all of a sudden?
Let me hang it up for you.
I can hire my goddamn.
I know that, but I would like to hang it up for
Get
you.
out of my way, you black bastard.
What?
Danny DeVito said that Anne Ramsey was undergoing oral surgery and was enduring intense pain, but she never asked to be excused from work. She was so good that she was so good in the movie. Actually, she was nominated for an Academy Award and for a Golden Globe. In 1988, Anne and her husband made a joint appearance as homeless people, actually, in the movie Scrooged. And they also appeared together. They appeared together a few times over the years in the show Alf. August 11th of 1988, and the cancer had progressed so much that she was admitted to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, and that's where she passed away. Now, I read an article that she was released from Cedars and died in hospice the next day, but according to her death certificate, she died in Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. It was on August 11th at 18:05, which would be 6:05 p.m. Her body was taken to the Praisewater mortuary, which also is the same mortuary that handled David Doyle from Charlie's Angels, handled Ray Combs, the game show host, B. Benaderet from Petticoat Junction. George Spahn was handled by them as well. And Ashley Ellerin, the murder victim from the Hollywood Ripper, that whole Ashton Kutcher thing, which I did a story about. They were all handled by that mortuary. And she had a memorial at St. Michael and All Angels Episcopal Church in Studio City, and her body was taken to Forest Lawn Cemetery in Omaha, Nebraska, where she was originally from. Danny DeVito said at the time when he had heard, or he was asked to make some sort of statement, he said, "We make movies about people who had tremendous courage and spirit. And all along we had Anne Ramsey among us who had more courage and more spirit than anyone I've ever met." Now, to date, Anne Ramsey's grave is unmarked. I called the cemetery earlier today and asked them about it, and they wouldn't even. I said, we've marked graves before. We'd be interested if it was possible, and they just no, it's not possible. Family's wishes, which is fine. If it's the family's wishes, I understand that. I respect that. But she's buried in her family plot at Forest Lawn in Omaha, Nebraska. And she actually had a couple of films released posthumously, Homer and Eddie and Meet the Hollowheads. And her husband, Logan Ramsey, ultimately followed her in death in 2000. And we don't know where he's buried either. Maybe he's buried with her in that unmarked grave in the family plot in Omaha, Nebraska. Now, moving on to John Matuszak. John Matuszak played Sloth, who was the giant Goonies son, the Fratelli son that was locked up, and everyone thought he was a monster until he wasn't. And Matuszak was born in Wisconsin. He was a pro football player who played in 2 Super Bowls, actually, turned actor, and he played Sloth. Now, he was 6'8", 280 pounds, described as a fun-loving, giant, pound puppy dog, just begging for you to pat him on the head, though he played in football quite aggressively and with a tough attitude. His childhood in Milwaukee was quite rough. He had 2 brothers that died of cystic fibrosis, a sister who was diagnosed with cystic fibrosis. One of his brothers died when he was 2 years old, or when the brother was 2, John was 12. So that was a lot to take on board. And he himself didn't develop physically until, later on. He was quite tall and he's quite slim, skinny, I guess you'd say. And because he looked different from other people, of course, he became the focus of bullying. And they called him Beanpole. And I guess as a reaction to that is when he started getting into athletics. That's when he started working out and getting into, playing football and things like that. He was quite successful in college football, but as he got more successful, he got into substance abuse, got into, recreational drugs and alcohol. And I don't know, he had maybe some kind of condition, I don't know how it would be defined anymore, but he became unhinged really quickly. Like he people could see it coming, and he was like, here he comes, and he'll blow up, and he'd start beating somebody. But he got away with it because he was so well liked. I mean, he was a really nice guy, but I think when he went under the influence of something, it didn't go well, and he was a hard partier. He was forced to leave the University of Missouri at one point because he says he gave a guy a new face. He got into a fight, and he was kicked out, and he went to the University of Tampa. He'd been convicted of assault in 1976, 4 drunk driving convictions, 2 for concealed weapons, 1 for marijuana possession, 2 crashes into parked cars. But again, he was so likable that people forgave him a lot. He became really successful in professional football. His name was Matuszak, and some people, I think, may have had difficulty pronouncing it. So his nickname, by looking at it, by the spelling, but he became the Tooz. That's how he got known, Tooz. And he was Again, hugely successful. Played for the New England Patriots, the Washington Redskins, the Houston Oilers, and ultimately the Oakland Raiders from 1976 and 1981. And he played in 2 Super Bowls. Now, he was also well known for defying the rules. Like when you're a professional athlete, you're not supposed to drink, or you're not, you go to bed by 9 and get up early and you're working out. He didn't care. I mean, he was out partying till all hours. Even the night before one of the Super Bowls, he did that. In fact, I think he got into a fight the night before one of the Super Bowls. I think he beat up a male stripper, I think is what it said in one of the articles. There's a lot of articles about his activities and the way he behaved. But he was a really good-looking guy, 6'8", really built, huge arms, and he posed nude for Playgirl as well in 1982, I think it was. And he got into acting, North Dallas 40. He was in a movie called Caveman with Ringo Starr, Shelley Long, and Avery Schreiber. And ultimately he was in the Goonies as well, which is certainly the most famous film he was in.
It used to take them 5 hours to get into that makeup. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Not only that, but the problem was they'd put him in 5 hours worth of makeup, and then the next day they'd change the makeup. And they'd have to put him in 5 hours of different.
He had all the remote control in there.
Oh, they had 5 different design concepts for Sloth throughout the filming of the picture.
Yeah.
And then we told you not to get him wet in the boat scene. He had just had 5 hours of makeup. He got in the water. And I said, don't get him wet.
Everybody jumped
on him, and the makeup just blew. And that wonderful guy never got upset for a minute.
Yeah.
And it started all over again.
Poor guy.
Poor Matuszak.
No, it's awful.
Yeah, and I guess the lower eye, in order for him to blink, it was operated by remote control.
Yeah.
So they had to go 1, 2, 3, blink, and he'd blink his right
That's
eye.
right.
And then they would remote control, blink the left, and move the ears as well.
You're right.
Yeah, John Matuszak was a trooper.
He really was.
There was an incident in Tampa I read about. He was supposed to catch a plane. He showed up late. He left the rental car running outside the terminal, raced to the ticket counter, and was told his plane had left. He reached over, grabbed the attendant by the shirt, and lifted him up and asked him which gate. When he found out, the elevators are closing, elevator doors. He forced them open, ran to the gate. The plane had already gone. He found a place to sleep and caught the next plane. So most of the people who knew him and saw that side of him thought, well, that can't last forever, the way he behaved. He had gone to rehab several times, but he had failed each time. And one time he went, he was supposed to get a 90-day chip, I think it was, at AA, because, when you reach certain milestones in Alcoholics Anonymous, you get a chip. I don't know what the increments are, but there's a 90-day chip, and he made it to 89. So he would fail rehab. He would fail AA, or whatever the term is. Fail wouldn't probably be the term that would be acceptable, but I think you know what I mean. He just he couldn't commit to it. But also, it's kind of a complicated story, but since he was a good-looking guy, and since he commanded attention because of his size, he would go in San Francisco, he would go to gay bars, and he would just rip open his shirt and start yelling or screaming like a lion, like Sloth did in the movie, because he liked it when guys looked at him. I don't think he was gay, but he did enjoy that. They say he was so insecure that he liked to go, just to get attention, because he wanted to be liked, like a lot of actors, like a lot of people who want attention. They love it when they get attention. So that's one of the things that Matuszak used to do. He'd stomp into bars and just rip open his shirt, gay bars, and rip open his shirt and growl or like that. And as I mentioned at one event, he threw a male stripper over some tables and beat up the master of ceremonies. I mean, he was a live wire, a nice guy, but a live wire. But on the other hand, people have really nice things to say about him. He spent a lot of time. He's a devoted family man to his parents and to his sister. and the sister's kids. And he spent a lot of time working with kids, football camps, and he would visit kids in the hospital with cancer. And so he was, and this was on his spare time. He wasn't doing it for like photo ops. He was just a really nice guy, really kind of messed up, really just a messed up kind of way of thinking. He was in a show, he did an appearance in a show called Silver Spoons, and he met a woman named Stephanie Cozart, who was a makeup artist, and they began to see each other. And they became engaged, and they were going to get married, and she said that they like bought the invitations, and they were about to be sent out, but he had another one of his episodes, and she couldn't deal with it anymore. She said that, talking about the rehab and the chips, she said, I have a little velvet box at home. It's full of 30-day and 60-day chips. They give them out at AA meetings. His big goal was to get the 90-day chip, and he never got one. So she called off the wedding because she just couldn't deal with that behavior anymore. And when she was asked about it, she said he would never take responsibility for it. He would always say it was never his fault. If he got in an accident, it was the other guy's fault. He got in a fight, it was the other guy's fault. So he never took responsibility for it. She said he was in a lot of emotional pain, childhood stuff, present day stuff. She said he was a therapist's dream.
John, welcome aboard. The big reason that John is here is because he has a book. It's called Cruisin' with the Twos. We'll plug the book first, and we'll talk about what's in Cruisin' with the Twos.
Oh, football, you know, it's not exactly all football. It's about growing up in America, where your dreams and your nightmares can come true. It's about Super Bowls and making movies, and it's about life in a fast lane and things falling apart and putting it all back together.
That's one of the things. I know the people who followed you when you were a Raider. You had a reputation as a wild man, an absolute wild man, off the field as well as on the field. That's all changed.
Well, it had to, otherwise I wouldn't be here. You know, if I'd have tried to continue to live up to the image of the Twos, which I did for a while, you know, you can really get yourself hurt. And I'm here to tell you that no matter how big and bad you are, that drugs and alcohol can knock you all the way down. So there's a reason that stuff's illegal. And I think you should stay away from it. I'm tired of hearing about athletes and drugs.
He was living with his girlfriend, his current girlfriend at the time, in a house, a really nice house that overlooked Universal Studios. And apparently on the night of June 17th, 1989, she found him unresponsive. She heard him snoring, and then when she checked on him, he wasn't responsive. So she called 911, and the fire department responded to the call, and they couldn't revive him. And they brought him by ambulance to St. Joseph's Medical Center. That's where he was ultimately pronounced dead. So he had died at home probably, but he wasn't pronounced dead until he got to St. Joseph's Medical Center. He was 38 years old. And he did have a funeral, actually, in Los Angeles. 500 people, including friends, family, and former teammates. In fact, I have here, this is the memorial booklet to his memorial service. 500 people, including friends, family, former teammates of John Matuszak, crowded into St. Matthew's Church for the 90-minute funeral. John will be remembered for more than just his accomplishments as a professional football player, said the Reverend. He will be remembered for more than his accomplishments in television or in the movies. And as the memorial service finished, the Rolling Stones song, "You Can't Always Get What You Want," was played. You know, his death certificate says that he died at St. Joseph's Medical Center. A lot of the obituaries, there are a lot of obituaries, because he has a lot of information about him and his behavior. But he was pronounced dead at St. Joseph's Medical Center. But his address was a Milwaukee address as his usual residence on the death certificate. In Milwaukee, this house in Milwaukee was his official address at the time, though he had been living in this other house. The second page corrects that information about his main address being that house in Wisconsin and changing it to the house in Los Angeles that I showed you a little while ago. And he was taken, so his cause of death actually is acute paroxysphene intoxication and also contributing hypertrophic cardiomyopathy and bronchopneumonia. It was ruled an accident. John Matuszak was, his body was shipped back to Wisconsin, where he's buried at Forest Home Cemetery in Milwaukee. He was cremated, and that's where he is buried. So that's my little information video about Anne Ramsey and John Matuszak. Two very interesting people. I love that movie. I love the Goonies so much. And yeah, so rest in peace, Anne Ramsey and John Matuszak. They were a lot of fun. That movie was so much fun. So thank you all for watching. I appreciate it. If you are so inclined, I have a Patreon page. The link is in the description below. And you can subscribe for $1 or $2 a month, and you'll get access to a lot of other information, a lot of access back and forth with other people who are really interested in exclusive content that you won't get anywhere else. So that's what makes it exclusive, I guess. But thank you very much for your time. I appreciate you watching. Thank you very much for your attention. And until next time.
Hey, you guys.
Kids suck.